The British flight attendant Kaylee Morgan had been on the Ionian island of Corfu in the summer of August 2010 after finishing university and was working as a tourist agent. In the afternoon of the 23rd of August 2010, and while on the beach, a stranger approached her from behind, asking her, "What time is it?" And when she turned to him, he hit her on the head. He dragged her into the forest, and after he grabbed her money and telephone, tied her up and held her captive for 14 hours, raping her 5 times. The rapist would threaten her with a knife, that if she left and reported about him, he would kill her. The woman managed to escape from the hands of her capture and headed immediately to the police station. The officers showed her pictures of a particular person as the alleged perpetrator, and she identified him. "I'm sick to think that they knew him and released him," she said on British daytime show This Morning. The British woman said her rapist threatened her with a knife that if she left and went to the authorities, then he would kill her. Everyone knew who he was and that he had raped for the first time at 15, and because he understood that they were looking for him, he left me. I certainly wonder why he was not in prison, or even why he was not closely watched, as they knew how dangerous he was," said the young girl who managed to escape and go to the police to report everything she lived through. Kaylee Morgan's rape was one of a series of rapes that spread terror among holidaymakers on both the island of Corfu, as well as in British and through the media across Europe. In Great Britain, the reports of the inconceivable rapist of Lefkimi had thickened, and the country was defamed by the majority of the media that prevented tourists from visiting the country. This forced the British consul Alison Beckett to go to Corfu together with the Scotland Yard police special officers to assist in the investigation and arrest of the rapist. The Corfu authorities launched a manhunt to find and apprehend the perpetrator, creating a stranglehold on the 37-year-old, carrying a large number of police officers who were combing the specific area where the perpetrator was hiding. Meanwhile, investigations were conducted to determine whether residents of the Lefkimi area were helping the alleged rapist throughout this period. Dimitris Aspiotis, realizing that he was cornered and that he would not be spared, contacted the police to negotiate his surrender. Indeed, the term in the negotiation by the 37-year-old was at the time of his surrender to be present 2 specific known journalists. On August 25th, 2010, at night, the Dragon of Kavos, seeing that there is nowhere to escape, was captured in the forest area where he had built shelter. The man in question was a known sex offender who had been arrested and convicted in 2007 of the rape of 3 women committed between 1997 and 2005. Upon his release in 2010, and only a few days later, he carried out the attacks and rapes on British tourists. On the 11th of December 2012, Aspiotis, the otherwise Dragon of Kavos, sat in the dock of a defendant of the Igumenitsa Joint Court, accused of repeatedly raping 3 women. The trial started late after the accused had no defense lawyer, as all members of the Thesprotia Bar Association refused to represent. He was eventually appointed counsel by the court. 2 of the 3 victims, 23 and 47 years old, described in detail in court what horribly passed into the hands of the assailant while taking their hostage. The third, an 18-year-old girl at the time, sent a memo to the court after, according to her lawyers and the medical certificates presented, more than 2 years after the incident, she was still hospitalized in rehabilitation centers, trying to overcome the tragic events. A tragic figure, the accused's older brother, who relentlessly asked to convict him by revealing that the perpetrator had been previously convicted of rape again, noted that he is dangerous and will repeat it in the future. The defendant's brother did not hesitate to say at a trial break, "Give me a weapon to kill him. I will end the vilification for my family," pointing out that they came from a poor family of 6 children and that family poverty is no excuse for the crimes committed by his brother. As hard against the perpetrator were his fellow villagers, who pointed out that his actions created serious problems in the local society and defamed a tourist area. The prosecutor at the hearing pointed out that he was an unrepentant rapist who is particularly dangerous for public safety, suggesting that the accused be given 87 years in prison for the 3 rapes, 2 robberies, the hostage-taking and the arms-dealing charges he was facing. Aspiotis was apathetic throughout the trial, and in his apology claimed that for 2 of the 3 cases he was under the influence of hallucinogenic substances, while for the case of the 18-year-old, he said that she consented to a sexual act with him, a claim that the advocate for political treatment refuted. On the occasion of the merger, the court imposed 52.5 years imprisonment, 10 years deprivation of his civil rights, with the obligation to serve 25 years of his sentence before he was given the right to a release without the possibility of parole. On November 15, 2018, the Kavos monster, the serial rapist Dimitris Aspiotis, however, was released thanks to the provisions of the Paraskopopoulo Act, despite being sentenced to 53 years in prison for rape. After being released from jail, he made statements in various media outlets, claiming that he had only committed 2 rapes and not a third, as the court ruled, claiming that he had regretted and cried numerous times. The release of the Beast of Kavos, as he was described by all the media in Britain, caused an uproar, resulting in strong representations by British officials to the Greek government and especially the Ministry of Justice. On May 8, 2020, in Lefkimi, a 32-year-old Albanian went to Corfu security and declared the disappearance of his 34-year-old partner after he woke up in the morning and did not find her at home and was unable to contact her. It all began on Tuesday, May 5th, when the 32-year-old man and his 34-year-old partner, who knew and were in company with the then 47-year-old Aspiotis, who after his release lived in Lefkimi and would invite them to their house to drink wine. At one point, the 32-year-old went to bed, and when he woke up the next day, his partner was nowhere and any communication with her was not possible, although he searched everywhere with the help of friends and acquaintances. After the declaration of the disappearance of the young woman, and the reference to the name Aspiotis, the men of the Security Sub-Directorate of Corfu in Lefkimi literally launched a manhunt in order to locate the 34-year-old, who was eventually found accidentally by a police car at dawn on Saturday, May 9th, wandering in a deserted location in Lefkimi, where she had been abandoned by her 47-year-old kidnapper, visibly battered and in a miserable condition. The 34-year-old woman complained to the police that Dimitris kidnapped and held her hostage, while at the threat of a knife for 2 days, he moved her from hut to hut and raped her repeatedly. The 34-year-old slept and woke up at 12 when suddenly she saw Aspiotis in her bedroom. She told him to go right out, and he told her that her partner had drunk too much and she had to go and get him. For her bad luck, she believed the 47-year-old and decided to follow him so she could bring her partner home. After a long walk, and after constantly asking him where they were going, the 34-year-old began to suspect that the intentions of the Dragon of Corfu were hostile. She tried to leave, but he caught her by the hair and punched her multiple times in the face. Her nightmare had just begun. The 47-year-old repeatedly raped her and threatened to kill her in order to satisfy his sick urges. He grabbed me by the hair, dragging her hard. I begged him to leave me and called for help. He hit me with his fists many times over the face and chest. I started bleeding. He was telling me to stop yelling. He took a rock and started hitting me in the head. He was threatening to kill me and told me that he had killed my partner. According to the girl's account, the attacker raped her and took videos. After he took the video, he told me that he was doing it to upload it to a porn site to embarrass me in case I spoke to the police. I believe he let me go because I promised I would not report him. Police in Corfu, after the 34-year-old's complaint of kidnapping and rape by Aspiotis, launched a search operation involving more than 100 police officers along with specially trained dogs, investigating even the most inaccessible areas. The investigations focused on southern Corfu in the wider area of Lefkimi, the place of origin of the 47-year-old man, an area which he knew well. At the same time, the story of the Dragon of Kavos would awaken painful memories in Britain, once again as a result of the pressure to arrest him and re-punish him, focusing on the scandal of the release of a highly dangerous rapist. On May 23, 2020, the 47-year-old rapist Aspiotis was identified by a passerby citizen in a coastal area where he was looking for water and food, and he alerted the police. Security men ambushed the inaccessible area above the beach of Agios Gordis in the area of Paliochori Lefkimi, South Corfu. From there, investigators carried out into the wider area of the location of the perpetrator, and his possessions were found by the police officers, among other things, such as a hunting shotgun, 2 cartridges, knives, as well as equipment for living in the countryside. Also were found and seized were a waste bag containing 2 mobile phones, and in close proximity to his location, a backpack, a sleeping bag, 4 electrical energy storage devices, and screwdrivers, which were found and confiscated. At the sight of the police, who were searching in the forested area, 47-year-old Aspiotis fled and jumped into a ravine 30 meters from a cliff, resulting in an injury to his limbs and spine. The assistance of the Port Authority of Corfu by sea was requested at this point. He was hauled from the ravine and taken to Corfu General Hospital with multiple fractures to the legs, ribs, and vertebrae. Aspiotis remained hospitalized and guarded at the surgery clinic of the main hospital of Corfu, with serious fractures in the ulna and hip, refusing to cooperate with his treating doctors, who in vain were trying to convince him that he had to operate. The operation was scheduled because his wound was severe and surgery could not be postponed, but the 47-year-old rapist refused to give his consent. Following this development, it was then decided to transfer him to the hospital in the Corrivalos prison to continue his treatment. And what had been reported against him about the kidnapping and rape of the 34-year-old, his lawyer would convey that "My client denies the accusations attributed to him. There was no kidnapping or rape in the sense. There was no achieving intercourse with violence. He did not force her to physically abuse or threatened her into an illegitimate intercourse. That is his independent claim. She had long-standing social interaction and friendly relations with the complainant and her partner. It was all by her will. We'll prove the truth with evidence. My client is chronically addicted and overly targeted." On the 15th of July, 2021, the Beast of Kavos sat in the dock at the Mixed Jury Court of Thesprotia. Taking into account all the elements and dangers of Aspiotis, the court sentenced him to 24 years and 6 months in prison on charges of rape and causing dangerous bodily harm, including violating the conditions of his parole. The British press would report extensively once more on the Dragon of Kavos, and indeed, one of his victims, flight attendant Kaylee Morgan, when she learned he was seriously injured in his arrest, falling off a cliff, told the British newspaper Sun, I hope he will suffer pain for the rest of his life. It's time for the Greek authorities to lock him up and throw away the key. I warned that he would strike again, and it turned out that I was right. I'm just glad he was caught before another woman's life was ruined.